In the background, I share my office with my cats, and there are a few of them hanging out with me right now eating their breakfast. So ignore that if you hear it. Al is double booked this morning, so I'll go ahead and go over our project updates. So we are in Sprint 25 right now, and that ends tomorrow. We are doing a special 1 week sprint this time instead of our normal 2 week sprint. And that is because next week the BAs and our developers will be meeting in person on Monday and Tuesday, so no development work will be happening. And then the BAs will be in Bloomington Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday to meet with the state folks to go over multiple topics and kind of get some things moving with that. So because of all the in-person stuff, we decided to do a 1 week sprint this week, and we're going to be doing a 3 week sprint starting on Monday just to make sure our devs have plenty of time to get stuff worked on. So what we're working on this week, we are currently working on the customer status. We're working on both the customer application lists and filters. We're working on the activity log, expanding application and eligibility, pre-screening for ETPL upgrades, the training program list, save and retrieve features, and configuring relationship backend upgrades. Discovery that we're still currently working through. We're doing the customer intake, case notes, the WIOA application, expanding services, that is career plan services and self and info only services, the career plan itself with goals and objectives, the printable summary and log, things like that, entity management with the training program definition, and grant management. Any questions about our project updates before we hop right into our working session? All right. So I'm on the docket for both things today. So let me switch gears. We have two things we're going to cover. We're going to come back to that one. And we're going to talk about first the really exciting thing that I've been waiting to talk to you guys about, and that is service episodes. So we are in a good place with Discovery with the Universal Career Plan services that I'm ready to kind of talk to you guys a bit about this portion of it. And then you'll see more of services within the career plan in the next few weeks. So as we're going through service episodes, I want to first make sure I understand the current process in IWDS, make sure I'm not missing anything. I think I understand them pretty well. And then we're going to talk about what is not great about the current process, what needs to be fixed, and what you guys are kind of looking for the future for service episodes. And then I do have 3 different mock-ups that we're going to go over to kind of show you how 3 different ways I envision service episodes working, getting your thoughts and opinions on those, or seeing if we need to scrap everything and kind of start over. So the way I understand the current process for service episodes is you add a same-day service to a customer, and service episodes are, only for those same-day services. Once you add that same-day service, you can select it from the list of services, and then there's this Add Additional Episode button. You click that button, it pops up making you put in a case note. That case note category is that case note supporting same-day service. You would put in your subject in your case note, you would save it, and when you return to the list, it's going to update that list with the start date's going to be the date you first entered the same day service, and the end date's going to be the last service episode that you entered. So you can see for this example I have here for transportation, it was first entered on IWDS on October 8th, and the last episode was added January 12th. And then if we do want to go back and add additional episodes, we just keep going back, opening this service, adding the additional episode. And then if we do want to delete, then we go in here and we click the delete service, and it deletes the whole shebang. So it's going to delete the service and any episodes that are tied with it. Does that sound correct in that process of service episodes?
Yeah, it does. The only thing that it doesn't do is it doesn't delete the corresponding case notes that go with those episodes.
Oh, that's interesting. I mean, good, so you can at least go back and look at those, but then you have nothing to really tie it back to. Perfect. Okay. So here are 3 main things I identified as problems with this process. The first is that there is no clear way to see how many episodes are tied to a service. In this example here, we know there are at least 2 service episodes just looking at the list because the start date and the end date are different. But that's a pretty big jump between dates, and without really sifting through all those case notes, hoping that the case notes were put in with a good subject that you can easily, figure out which case note is tied to which same day service. We have no way of knowing if there's only 2 service episodes here or if there's 12. So that's kind of my first glaring problem with this is there's no easy way to do that. The second is that kind of ties along with that. If you do want to go back and look at previous same day services and service, you have to go to the case note list. You have to sift through all these case notes supporting same day service. And once again, hope that the note subject that the career planner put in is tied to that specific service. And even then, you may not know, and you may have to click on each case note and read the details to figure out what is for each service episode. So it's just kind of a mess to try to figure that out. If the career planner was in a hurry and maybe they didn't put in the service in the note subject and maybe it's in the case note itself, you'd have no way of knowing that without opening the case note. It's just really a convoluted process to try to figure out. So that's kind of the number 2 problem. And the number 3 problem is that there is currently no way to just delete one episode within the service. So if you added an episode in error and you go, oh, shoot, I didn't mean to add that, you have to delete the entire service, and then which deletes all the episodes that are tied to it, and then re-enter all of the work. So that just causes additional work for the career planners. It can kind of be a flag for monitoring, wanting to know like, hey, why was this deleted and re-entered? So those are the 3 main problems I identified. Are there any other problems that you guys can think of, like working in the field with service episodes that we want to make sure we don't replicate in 2.0? Paul, you have your hand raised.
Yeah, so I think, what you just said is absolutely correct. The other thing that we have is, far as tracking goes, there's the other supporter service, which I guess is a catch-all, but you have stuff like fingerprint background checks or health screenings, right? For employment or for training or for, like meeting the requirements for like the nursing programs and clinicals and all that kind of stuff, vaccinations, things like that. Normally they get all logged under like at least in our area, other supportive services. So they're all clumped together. Does that need to be separated out if you're doing additional episodes of each of those items?
So right now, would you do a separate other supportive service each
Yeah,
time, or would you do
no,
an episode
no, it
each
would
time?
just be an add additional episode. So you can
Okay.
really track, how many instances did we have for this person where we had to do background checks, right? So if they had to do, let's say they did like 3 different work experiences, and they needed to have a background check done for each work site. Well, um, we put it all under other supportive services. And then if they
Hmm.
have, something like, physical done or, anything like that, or drug screening, those would be under other supportive services. Other like books, for training. We don't record them under ITA because that's the tuition. So we put it
Hmm.
under other supportive services, and it's always an add additional episode.
So then when you're adding the additional episode, are you just putting in the case note here, like what you
Yes.
provided?
Yes.
Okay.
And when we put in the add additional episode, there's that comment section.
Hmm.
We've instructed career planners to um, enter the date and what it was that they did,
Okay.
so that we can track it, because then we can correspond it with the case note that was entered for it.
So one thing I'm going to show you real quick, kind of hopping to that specifically. So this is a peek behind the curtain because we are not ready to show you the actual like services themselves because we don't have them built yet. But we have templates built for all of the services that they're going to use in IWDS 2.0. And for other supportive services, one thing we are adding is you're going to have to enter the type of supportive service you're providing as part of the service. So there's going to be a drop down here that has all the items that are listed in the services matrix. And then there's also going to be an other where you can select it, and then it's going to give you a please specify. So you're going to be able to really dig that down in the service itself without having to rely on putting it in the comments or putting it in a case note. So I just wanted to show that to you so that you know that that's coming down the line with other supportive services. And I think even with, let me see, supportive service, nope, not that one. I think follow-up is the other one we're doing similar to that. So you'll be able to put in like type of follow-up service provided. So we are going to kind of clean that up a little bit. And I'm hoping with how we're going to move with service episodes, that's going to move exactly into a nice, concise way for you to be able to look at that information. Robert, you said adding laptop to the drop-down list. Is that for the other supportive service? So I think that would be a good idea. Maybe put something like technology and put like a few different examples that you could select in there.
Yeah, like laptop loans, when we loan
Yeah.
laptop out, so like laptop or materials, learning materials loans, something like that. Yeah.
Laura, you have your hand raised. You're our services matrix expert, so I'll let you take that one.
Yes, as we're working through putting in our goals and objectives and determining what those might be for supportive services, we've looked at this and we'll probably be altering the definitions of supportive services and providing categories, so it will be much easier for you to determine where it belongs in the future. So just look for that to be upcoming as part of the new system. It'll be a different rollout. So.
And let me see here. Dan, you have your hand raised.
I think just like I mentioned a couple of weeks ago, there's some magical number of how many things are listed in the drop down. And so, right, it seems as though there's some logical groupings just so that there's not 50 different things to choose from, because then people are just going to choose other and type it in because it's easier than scrolling through so many options.
Yeah, you make a good point there. You know, with this one, like I said, right now it's just pulled directly from the services matrix, but you can see things are really clumped together. So instead of having, like I said, 50 options, you could say, you know, assistance with book fees, blah, 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 whatever. And then in the comments, you could say provided a book voucher or something like that. So you don't have to always go to that other option. But yeah, we'll definitely keep that in mind. Like Laura said, where they are going to be probably updating the definitions to make things easier for you all. So once all that's updated, this will be updated to reflect it all. All right. So other than that, anything else that you think are issues with service episodes, or is there anything specific you'd like to see in IWDS 2.0? And Dan, I think I saw your hand up again.
I'm sorry, one other thing.
Yeah.
When you were picking through the drop downs, there was, I think, maybe it's under select an answer. No, it wasn't that one. One of them said WIOA. Yeah, that one. Other reasonable in the WIOA program. If this is potentially applicable to not just WIOA, then maybe you just strike WIOA out of that. I don't know. Maybe it needs to be there. But I was thinking about like other grants, and as 2.0 gets expanded to include other things and you're trying to use the same, maybe WIOA shouldn't be there at that spot. Does that make sense?
I think we'll distinguish those by calling them barrier reductions.
Thank
so
you.
If it's non-WIOA, it's barrier reduction. Yeah.
Perfect. All right. So anything else on problems or anything you would like to see specifically with service episodes, like any wish list items?
Well, you got the laptop. We do give out like laptop with their backpack and stuff like that, just so we stay in compliance as far as letting the state know what all we're giving the clients. that was a good point with the other grant, like the ARPA grant, the CJA grants, and all of those stuff, even though CJA is not in IWDS, but eventually, sometime those things carry over into WIOLA is the naming aspect of WIOLA and other grants that we have when we have those national emergency grants as well. So
Mhm.
somewhere we need to figure out a terminology that fits other grants besides the WIOLA. So I do agree with that.
Yeah, Laura, you have your hand up.
Yeah, anytime you guys have any thoughts about that stuff, can you send me an email and let me know what specifically you want to see added to those definitions in the service matrix? We are in the process of creating some different subcategories, and technology would be one of them. So if you could give that to us, basically, I think Taylor's just wanting to know about the flow and how it works here, but any specific changes that you would like to see to lines on those drop downs, part of the service matrix definitions, please send those to me and I can get those incorporated in our new version.
And then Paul put a question in the chat, and Laura, this may be more of a question for you. It does say, will we be able to add episodes during follow-up? Currently in IWDS, you have to close the follow-up and then add a supportive service and then reopen the follow-up. Is that because once they're in follow-up, there are certain things that they're not technically supposed to get anymore?
Correct. If it's an adult dislocated worker, once you're in follow-up, you're not to receive any more services. If so, then you have to back out the follow-up and then put in the service like Paul's talking about. For youth, you can provide supportive services after exit during follow-up. And so we are building those screens in order to match whatever's applicable to the title that you're serving. So if you provide a service, you can't be a follow-up anymore. You're no longer exited. So you've got to take that follow-up off, add a real service if you're an adult and dislocated worker.
Perfect.
But,
And then another thing, oh, go ahead.
but on the use side, when you build that out, they're going to be able to do supportive services without
Yes.
first closing the follow-up service.
Yes, we're going to expand youth follow-up so it includes all of the activities that you can do with youth during follow-up. So
Thank
you
you.
can record those so we can capture them and saying, here's what we're doing with them. Yes.
Yeah, so it'll be much more intuitive depending on which title a customer is certified for.
And
So
one,
that should be helpful
one
for you
last
all.
question with
Yeah.
that. Will then an add additional episode of ISS work the same way?
For ISS, yes.
Are you meaning like if you're making modifications
Well,
or?
yeah, as I say, the career plan, there's not going to be an IEP quote ISS. It's going to be a career plan, and we're going to have a log. So it's going to be able to note when you make changes to it. So there will be no more episodes tied to a career plan.
Okay, thank you.
And I have an
Mhm.
example, a rough example of that. I think I may not have stole it from Olivia. But we do have a tab that's going to be that history or log, and I think she may have gone over it last week, but that's where all of your modifications are going to be housed for the career plan. And if it triggers any sort of modification serious enough for like a signature or anything like that, it's all going to be there. So you're no longer going to have to put in a new episode for, IEP or ISS to track that, since the career plan itself will actually be in the system now. So one of the things we're trying to not eliminate, but kind of use less of, is the need to put in additional services when they can be captured elsewhere. We're also trying to get rid of possibly, needing to put in a case note for every single other thing. If there are ways for us to track what you need without a case note, then we're going to do that. But of course, case notes are still going to be an integral part of the system, but little things like that. So like when you're adding a service episode, if we can accurately show you like, yes, we added the service episode, here's the date, here's why, without you doing a case note, we're not going to require you to do a case note. Right now, I can understand why you have to do a case note, because that's the only way you can see the details about that episode. So with that, I want to go into the 3 different mock-up options I have for service episodes. I have a list view, a drop-down view, and then a combined view. And I'm going to switch to my actual screen here because it's going to be easier for us to actually see what I'm doing here. So let me find what I'm trying to find here. Hold on. So this would be option 1, which is a list view. So I'm just using transportation as an example. And when we go into transportation, you'd be able to see the name of the service and just some basic information at the top, who the service was created by, the date it was added, what program and subprogram it's associated with, and the service level. This might update as we're talking about services, so just kind of ignore this top part. The main thing we want to look at here is episodes. So the way option 1 would work is you're going to have service episodes here, and you're going to have a list. And that list is going to show all of the episodes that are associated with this service. So if we kind of go in here, you can see this example is that there are 6 episodes tied to this transportation service. And you can see all of the completion statuses, the plan dates, because the way we're moving is you're going to be able to plan services without actually having to start them. So we kind of want to move that route with episodes as well. Like if you know maybe this customer here needs a bus pass at the first of every month for 6 months, you could plan each service episode for that. And then as the first of the month gets here, you would just open the service, close it, or the episode, and work that way. So you'd have this list that shows you all of the episodes, and then you'd be able to click the little eye icon, which is your view. And when you do that, it's going to take you to a view for that episode, which would be like this. So then you're going to be able to see all of the items tied with it. If you want to edit that episode, then you would click the edit button, and it would actually open up the edit modal. And then we do have that option to delete as well. So if we go back here, you'll see there is this delete icon. The way we're going to move with deleting services is that if the service has not been started, so there's no data tied to it, it's just been added to the career plan, but you haven't done anything with it, the career planner will be able to delete it. And that's with services and service episodes. But if you've started the career plan, if you've gone in there, you've edited it, you've modified the completion status or the dates or anything like that, and then you go back and say, oh shoot, I need to delete that, then that's when you'd have to contact your local system administrator, and they would have to delete that for you. But this process does still allow you to delete single episodes instead of having to go and delete the whole service. Thoughts on moving to this list view? Anything you like about it, anything you don't like about it? And I've got 2 more views to show you.
Okay, I wait to see it, the other 2, but so far it's looking interesting. It looked like it would be helpful for the career advisor to be able to delete stuff instead of always asking me, or if I can't delete it, me asking to stay, putting in all that paper request to get something moved out that was something simple. Would that same scenario be as far as changing the name? Would it be that simple for the career advisor to change a client name? And are we going to keep a certain structure for customer name that is stay in one order, in a sense? Not all cap, not all lower, but capital, lower, capital, middle, capital, first, last name. That's FYI. I'm just talking out loud while we're talking about it. Thank
that
you.
second part about making sure that, like capitalization, I'll have to run that back by Olivia because she's the one that's really doing that type of stuff, but I'll double check with her because I do agree with what you're saying. You don't want to make sure it's all, they accidentally have their caps lock on and their whole name is, capitalized. If you could go back and fix that. So
Correct.
one thing I will note about the name though, when you're in the customer profile, right now, when you click edit, you will have the capability to edit their name. The only thing is whatever name they have, once their application becomes certified, that application is static and you cannot change the name on the application. That would be, you'd have to, make a request if something like that happens. But if you are just on the profile level, yes, you'd be able to update the name. So
Great.
even if they haven't started an application yet and they have their customer profile and you go, oh, wait, their first name's not Jamie, their first name is James, and they just go by Jamie. You could go in here and you could just go James, save, and we're updated. So now the customer's name is James Millen, but we know James prefers. Hold on.
Another question on that. Once, let's say if that person is exit and we realize the name was spelled incorrect or the social security number was incorrect, who would the system administrator be able to change it? Or would that have to be, would I have to report that down to DCL to fix?
You're saying specifically on like an exited application?
Yes.
I am not sure, but I'll make a note of that and we'll get that answered and we'll make sure we let you know.
Okay.
And you said, would that be something the system admin could update or would it have to go to the state?
It would be
Right.
great if the system admin could do it, because we write there, say one part of it I could
Mhm.
change, but the other, the application part, I would have to send it down to the state to change. So the customer profile side I could change, but if
Yes.
it exit, the customer side again, certain thing is open up for the system admin to do. And then I would fix it, then tell them, okay, I fixed my part. I just need you guys to fix your end. But if
Okay,
I
so
could
right now
fix,
it's just kind of, it depends on what it is and what you can
correct,
change and what you can't.
absolutely.
Okay, and Christy, I saw you had your hand raised, and then once you're done, Paul, you can go after.
Hi, I just had a question about the episode or the list, I guess. So like,
Yeah,
so it's not gonna be a whole list on this, like, I guess, so you click on the one, there's gonna be one, service that says transportation, then you click inside of it and you see the list. Is that what you're saying?
correct. Yeah, so you would first start like here, and this is still
Uh-huh.
under discovery development, so this isn't the end all be
Mhm.
all, but this would be like you click on the services tab in the career plan, and here are all the services tied to this customer. And we want
Okay,
to
so,
specifically look at transportation. When I click that view button to look at SS transportation, it would
uh-huh.
open to this.
Okay, so on the other screen where you just were, the previous one, will there be like a number that says like, there's 6 transportation open? Cause like, I guess I'm just saying, or there were 6 episodes added or something? Because if I'm looking at this screen, like as most of us kind of look to see what services were open or what's up, what they put in there. Um, just a suggestion, it might be helpful that we know that, okay, there's 6 transportations listed on the next, on the next level or however you want to describe
Yeah,
it.
we can. I'll make note of that. That's a really good idea. We're kind of talking about a few different things that we might be able to put, like maybe behind parentheses, like 6 episodes or
Yeah.
something,
Yeah,
just for
that
the
would be
ones.
helpful
Yeah.
because,
And then, of course, the ones that aren't same day services, they're not going to say anything because you
right,
can't
because in
have
Career Connect, we
episodes.
still do it the old way where there's like, sometimes there's like literally 25 services and like 10 of them are transportation. So that it makes it for like a long list, just like, before. So that will be helpful just to see how many were inside that, line, I guess, or that we
Okay, so
even know that
something
there's
like this,
additional.
or
Yeah, just so we know that there's something else behind there, like it's not just open that one time.
yeah, and you open it that one time and you open it and you go, oh wow, I
Mm.
had no idea this had 6 episodes.
Right, right, right.
Or even something like that, we could like display it underneath.
Yeah, that would be just as long as if that's possible, that would be very helpful.
Oh yeah, I'm definitely sure we could do that. That shouldn't be too difficult at all. We could even add it as its own column. The only reason why I am not super into that idea is just because we do have those non-same day services that don't have episodes. So you may have a lot of NAs in there. So I kind of like going this route here. So you don't have to worry about,
Yes.
like
Yes.
the ones
Yeah,
that
that's
don't have
helpful.
it.
Yep.
Yeah, Taylor, it might be able to follow like the goals and objectives where you have the
Yeah.
number on the, yeah, okay.
And you could click the number.
Uh-huh.
Yep, I was thinking the exact same thing. Perfect. All right. So
Mhm.
that,
Hold on one sec. Paul
Yep.
has his hand up.
Yeah.
I'll go on.
So, on the screen, oh, that one, right?
This one or the other one?
This one. So if let's just say the like number 4,
Mhm.
let's say that was filled out completely and the service was, filled out like it was given, right? It was
Mhm.
issued. And we then went and issued 5 and 6, but then we found out that 4 was actually voided and it was not issued, and we have to go and delete. Now, on the adult dislocated workers side, supportive services is not an extending service activity for extending participation, but on the use side, supportive service is one of the 14 elements, so it technically should be extending their participation in the program. And so if you delete that number 4, but had issued 5 and 6, that can affect the 90-day service activity, right? So how would that work? If we were able to delete it ourselves, like right now we can't, and we can't see the additional episodes, but if we had to, because in the past when we had to delete an additional episode, we couldn't delete it, but we would let DCO know and they would set it back to the last update or last additional episode that was done, to reset the date to that in order to, make the correction, if it was, the most recent one. But what would happen if we had issued 2 afterwards, right? Does that make sense?
It does to me, Paul, I think, but since you have the ones afterwards, your participations are extended. I think the only time that would come into play is if there is a 90-day time span in between, say, 4 and 5, and you're wanting to
Yes.
delete 4. Yeah,
Yes,
exactly.
that's what I'm getting at. So,
Yeah.
yeah, so let's say between 4 and 5, it was 110 days.
Yeah.
If you were to delete 4, then it would be like 110 days, right? And so, how would that work?
Well, hopefully they would be getting another service like education or transportation that you're providing, or I mean, education or training, or that you're providing this transportation service for. So hopefully there wouldn't be that much of a lapse because you would have that open training service. So hopefully that shouldn't be an issue.
Right, but we could have them go to like if they go to as part of their plan, going to a job fair, right?
Mhm.
So that's a same day, and so that could happen, right? But
Mhm.
then when you delete that, there could be a gap between 3 and 4 or 3 and 5. You see what I'm saying? That's over 110 days
Mhm. Well, I think
or
that
90
maybe,
days.
yeah, yeah. And it may be that we may have to do a system check that says, when they go to hit delete, the system check has to go back and see, hey, was there an open service to show participation within the last 110 days or something like that. And if the answer is no, then it's not going to let you delete it, but until you contact your administrator or the state.
Okay, yeah, okay, thank you.
Okay, but I'm making a note of that just to
Okay.
make sure we include that. Perfect. Any other comments on this one before I move on to option 2? All right, so option 2 is a drop-down view. So it works the same. So you'd be here on your services tab and you want to go in and look at SS transportation. You'd click your view button and it would take you to option 2, which is this drop-down view. So here, instead of having a list, you have a drop-down. So you'll be able to select this drop-down and it would say, service episode 1 of 6, 2 of 6, 3 of 6, blah, blah, blah. And you select which one you want to view. And when you select it, the details are going to show here for you. And then it'll work just the same way when you're on episode, 1 of 6. You can click the edit button to edit that specific episode, and then you'll have the button to add an episode. In this view, the deletion will be in your edit mode. So it would actually be in here because we don't have that list to kind of put that icon. So and the edit would, or the delete would work the same way. If you added this in error and you haven't edited anything, Career Planner can delete. But then if you need to delete for some other reason, if, once we get that check in place where, you are able to delete, you'd have to go to your system administrator and they would delete it for you. And all these deletions, when we do this, there is going to be a delete modal that pops up that is going to say, are you sure you want to delete the service episode? We are going to create, we don't have it yet, but we are going to create a drop down of options you'll be able to select from to delete. So you'll be able to just say, added an error, what have you. You'll be able to select why you're deleting it. And that deletion is always going to be logged in your log over here. So you'll be able to go back and see why something was deleted, who deleted it, etc. Christy, you have your hand raised.
Yeah, I just have a quick question about what you just said. So if we write a comment like, service entered an error, or it was like a duplicate entry or something, will those little comments go into the customer notes record or just a delete record?
It'll go in that log.
Okay, but not in the customer case note part.
No, because the way this is moving is that you're not entering a case note here.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep. Yeah, so what we're trying to do is give you more flexibility to edit service episodes without having to put in a case note every time you add a service episode. And Mark, you have your hand up.
Yeah, sorry to go back to Paul's comment. I was trying to process in my mind what he said, and maybe I didn't catch it clearly. If the issue is we identify a service, enter it in, then they have another service, let's say 60 days later, enter it in, then they have another service 60 days after that. So now we got a period of 120 days. Let's say that middle service we find out is incorrect and it wasn't a service at all. If I take that out, what happens next? Because now they've gone more than 90 days between two services when in fact they should have been exited. Am I going to get hit on that 120th day given a service when in fact that person shouldn't have even got services? And maybe that's not a question for this group per se for IWDS 2.0.
Yeah.
But if we take back a service and it extends beyond 120, it almost becomes a what's that word where you're not supposed to be paying for a service because they
Disallowed
should have
cost.
exited.
Yeah.
Yeah, disallowed
No,
cost.
Mark, we talked about putting in an edit in the system so it'll do a check. And we were just talking, at this point, we're just talking about deleting episodes of a service. That way the system will go back and do a check and it'll say, hey, wait a second, you haven't had any open services within the last 90 days or 110 days or whatever it is that you all decide upon, probably 90 days at this rate. And then the system will say you cannot delete this service and then they'll have to figure it out.
But if it wasn't a service,
It wasn't a service and somebody's going to have to go in, whether it's a local system administrator or the state, and make sure that that gets backed out and so that the automatic exit date gets put in properly.
How does that happen
think-
now? Because I'm sure that maybe not specifically with episodes, but I'm sure that happens now where something's added in error and you've provided them additional services since then.
yeah, nobody from local area is going to admit to it.
Yeah.
But I don't
I
blame
hear
you.
what you're talking. I see what you're talking about now. I get it. Oh, that's a tricky one. It's a
Because you're saying
workaround.
technically they should have been exited if they passed the 90 days, but
Well, they
because
should have
that
been.
120. It's
but because-
120.
but because that service was in there, it didn't hit that 120 days. But if you delete that service and it pushes them to that 120 days, but they had services after
Yeah,
that, then
that's probably a question for
basically we're
John.
saying it's a question for John and Lisa.
John and Tamika probably.
John and Tamika.
But,
I'll make a note of that. I have
let's come back to that in another
Yeah.
time in a sense of we want to
I've
make
got
sure
a
the
slot
system
in our in-person meetings next week for services, so I'll bring that up next week.
and just say, okay, how do you want it handled? Because if they receive the service, and it was an error, I mean, I don't know how disallowed costs go. I mean, errors are errors. I got to believe there's some leeway there, but yeah, let's ask them because we want to make sure the system doesn't then automatically exit them because they went that first 90 days without, and then all of a sudden this service is sitting out there that was 120, 130, 140 days. Who knows how long it was. what it means for you developing system. I think that's a question to ask them, and maybe there's just a forgiveness thing that we just have to make it work. I don't know.
Would that when the soft exit would play a role where it would do a soft exit with the idea of, okay, we want to do a soft exit, but if it doesn't get done properly, it would be a full exit where you're giving like the local areas or the career advisors time to say, oh, the state got a soft exit. If I don't do something within a certain time period, it's going to be a full exit, and there's no return. They would have to come back and do a new application if
Well,
they.
I think,
We're
and
getting away
Paul,
from
Laura
soft
can
exit.
help me with our discussions with DOL.
Mhm.
In reality, there should not be soft exits. It's
Nope.
supposed to be system generated.
Yep.
Yeah, obviously we have to give leeway for data management and case management getting it in the system. So that's why we allow those extra
120
days.
days. Yeah.
But if you go 90 days without an entry, and we now assume there is no service provided because we've gone the extra 10, 20, whatever we give leeway to get that in the system.
It's a
The
hard
system
exit.
is supposed to exit you. Right now, you do
Yep.
that manually.
Right.
DOL has made it clear that we are not supposed to be doing these manually, that there should
Nope.
never be a human error on how something exits because we shouldn't be doing it humanly. It should be the system telling it should exit or not. So I think that's, that soft exit would be that warning, I think. It's not really a
Yes.
soft exit, it's a warning that
Warning.
says,
Okay.
okay, you gone 60 days or you gone 80 days, you got another service or not. And then at 90 days say, hey, did you provide a service or not? If not, get this darn thing in here because we're going to exit you in X number of days and you're not going to be able to do anything about it without calling OAT.
Right.
Good.
I'm
So
sorry, I
it's
just
going
want
to
to
be
add.
imperative moving forward. If we put these hard exits in, that case management is very timely, and Paul and I are trying to help you all out a little bit by giving you some of those mid-year and end-of-year notifications. Say start checking. Here's what people we see that have over 110 days, over 120 days, et cetera. But with IPATs and being more tied to new IWDS 2.0, it's going to be more imperative that your career planners are keeping an eye on that and not letting that get out of hand, because the system will, in theory, start generating those exits.
Right. And that'll be the that's another good reason to have the dashboard for the career planner at the career planner level. That way they can see, hey, it's right in front of their face. Hey, something's coming up. You need to make sure you give this attention. So hopefully that'll help.
Then
Yeah,
Christy,
and I
I
just
saw you
want to
had your
add
hand
real
raised.
quick.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I just want to add real quick, like in Career Connect, we have like alerts that are for each career coach that like can be automatically set to like remind people of, hey, this is passing or approaching what you just said, the 60, 80, 75. So if that's something, I mean, we're probably not there yet, but if there's something like that that could be built into the new system, that will be really helpful because we use that quite often.
Yeah, we have had discussions of a dashboard where not really like here, but as an example, like you'd be green, yellows, like you're in that warning stage, and then red's like, hey, you need to do something right now. So yeah, we are talking about moving that way on an actual like customer like dashboard here.
Right, because they receive some type of an alert. It's almost like an email, like whenever you log in, there's like an alert, hey, this customer is at whatever, 70 days, whatever, we could choose it. So that helps to help manage some of those things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I made a note of that as well. We haven't started fully on this dashboard piece, but definitely we'll make note of that for when we get to that point. Because I agree, that would be pretty helpful. So then popping back to episodes, this is view 2, where you have this drop-down view. View 1 is your list view. And then my third option is a combination view where you have both on the page. So you would be able to have your drop-down at the top, so you'd be able to quickly view each episode here, but then you'd still have the list at the bottom that shows how many episodes are tied. So you could just do a quick view instead of having to switch between. And then it would still work the same. You'd be able to click this little button to edit that specific episode. You'd be able to add episodes. And one thing we are also including, you'll see it on this mock-up, I didn't update all of them, is this paperclip. So if you do have any documentation that needs to be uploaded for any service, not just a service episode, you'll see it here as well. Then you'll be able to upload that document that's tied to that service, and you'll be able to quickly go back and click this to view that document. But then if there are no documents, there won't be anything there. Paul, I see you like the third one. That is the combination view. Yeah, it's my favorite as well because it kind of gives you the best of both worlds. So if you like this view better, you can use that. If you like this view, you can use that. And then we would definitely take that suggestion here and have it listed on the main services page. Yeah, Ashanti, I see you like third view. Christy, you like the third view. Is there anything that you see on this that I don't have that you would like to have? And of course, this will be slightly fine-tuned, depending on what is needed for a same-day service will determine, like what fields are viewable and things like that. So that there will be more to come on that later down the line. But this is kind of where we are starting with service episodes. Yeah, and Laura, that's kind of where I went with this route too. She said, she likes this view because the delete isn't right there for you to accidentally hit it. So in this view, and we could do it in any of the views, is that you'd have to click this edit button and go into actually edit the service in order to delete it. So it's very intentional. There's no, yes, you could accidentally click this, but it's not going to be as accidental as, having a little tiny trash can button here where you're going to click on the documentation and you click the trash can and you go, oh, I didn't mean to do that. So this route, we would not have the delete here. We could have it here. And then I did have a question just for myself. And yes, Paul, there would be a warning. So basically you'd have a modal that pops up saying, hey, do you want to delete this? And if you went, shoot, I didn't mean to click that, you could just click cancel and it wouldn't delete anything. So another question I have about service episodes is right now in IWDS, when you add the episode, it just does the case note. Is there ever going to be a time where you're doing like transportation, for example, or healthcare is a good one, where you might have a different providing entity for the same service depending on the episode?
Yes.
Perfect. So that's kind of what I was assuming. And that's why we went this full route. So basically each episode is going to work as like an individual service, and you're going to have the full editing capabilities of that episode instead of just doing that case note. So they would all have their own completion status. They would have their own providing entities, planned start dates, planned end dates, start dates, end dates. We can even go as far as saying, if you have different goals and objectives for a same day service, you could do that there. So good. That's what I was hoping you'd say. So we're sounding like we like option 3 here, which is great because that's what I was hoping you'd like. Any other final thoughts or anything on service episodes before I change gears and go to an application question?
Just on the delete thing, wherever there's a delete button, would you be able to like on this one, right? Because this is the final one. So if you is there a way to like separate the delete button out more so you don't accidentally click on the delete?
You mean like here or like on the modal itself?
Right there on the pop-up there, since this is the final one where it's giving you that warning, could you move that over further to the left so that you don't click on delete?
Instead of cancel?
I could see, I could see where I'm gonna accidentally click on that. Well, I guess I wanted to click on cancel, but accidentally click on that delete.
Yeah, we could definitely make it more intuitive, like either put it on a different spot, or maybe if you click delete, another thing pops up that's like, are you sure?
Yeah, something like that, because
yeah,
I'm always
Olivia's
worried
doing
about
something
that.
like that in some of her stuff, so I'll look over and see what she's doing, because I think she has something somewhere where like a pop-up comes up that's like, are you sure you want to do this?
Well, that
So
would be That would be great if that's the case, because just for like confirmation. And also on that first screen, instead of have save, cancel, delete, can the delete be totally on the left-hand side?
To have it
Eh,
completely separate.
Yeah, have it on the left side where you just had the save and cancel on those on the right and the delete on the left.
I imagine that is something we could definitely do. I will talk to the other BAs about that because if we like doing that, I think that'd be smart to do anywhere we have a delete in the system.
Right, to keep them a little separate, not too close to each other.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll
But
make
if
a
they,
note of that.
yeah, and
And
also double check to make sure does it got like a confirmation at the end when it like it confirm and you just said okay, okay, and that would be great.
And the
okay,
different
I'll do
color
that now.
contrasts, the different color contrast of those buttons is good as well. I agree with what everybody's saying, but I think a lot it might also have to do with we're watching, especially some of us that are on laptops, so we're already on smaller screens, and then we're watching you share your screen, which looks smaller. So on
Mhm.
a bigger screen, they might not seem that cramped. But yeah, separating them, I guess, is good. But but if it's not possible to do that from a programming, page to
And I
page
can show you,
visualization side, then at least the contrasting colors, I think, helps.
ignore all this stuff here, but I'll show you what it looks like developed. So this is what it looks like developed already, these three buttons. And I know it's on a smaller screen, but this might be easier for you to see versus, like a mock-up of it, but this is exactly
Oh
how
yeah.
it works right
No, it looks
now.
great. I was just saying like that might be why we're kind of because I was
Yeah.
starting to think too. I'm like, oh, they're so close together. But maybe when we're seeing it on a regular, like on our regular screen, it might not look as close together. The proximity might be a little better. But yeah, separating out isn't a bad idea. But I was just saying if it turns out they say it's not feasible, as far as the screen layout design, at least the contrasting colors, I think.
Yeah, and like I said, I'll talk to Al, Olivia, and Lynette, get their opinions. My pen is dying. And see what their thoughts are with that. And if it's something that we think will be good, then we'll make those updates. Anywhere where this is in the system, we would update it so it's like, over here and separate for you.
Awesome.
Yeah, so we will let you know at a later date and time if we do that. So perfect. Any other final thoughts on service episodes? And like I said, you'll see a more comprehensive view of this later when we're actually going in, this screen here and everything like that. This all is still in discovery. But when I did discovery with the state folks with service episodes, they all were collectively said, talk to the locals. So that's why I wanted to get this in front of you now. And then we'll go through this in more detail when it's a little bit more flushed out. All right, so the next thing on our agenda is one quick question that Olivia wanted answered. She's not here today, so I'm going to talk about it instead, and it has to do with the application veteran question. So let me move over to here. I just moved it into my Miro board just for easy access. So right now in the WIOA application, we have that question for veteran status. If they indicate that yes, they are a veteran, then they have to answer this question here. If yes, list branch of service. Olivia said that she had gone over this with the state folks, and it is not any sort of Pearl or reporting requirements. And they weren't quite sure why we are asking this. She checked with Jeff Brown, and he said that he doesn't use it for anything either. So he wanted to bring this question to you all and figure out do you use this for anything? And if so, what? And what would be the implications if we got rid of it for the branch of service?
Well, I think we were just answering because we thought it was required, or well, it's required. So, I mean, if it's not reportable, then, or if you guys don't need to report it, I'm not sure. And also I'm speaking Chicago. We don't have tons of veterans in our area, so I don't know, what other areas are like. But as long as we have, whatever you guys need for reporting, then I think we're okay with whatever you guys decide.
It's one of those things like there was that social services tabs, and we way back when we were talking about entities and stuff, and so we were like, I didn't even know that was in there. It's one of those things that like, yeah, it's always been in there. So I guess we just always assumed it was something, maybe not for like Pearl or anything like that, but just something that like, oh, maybe some kind of for demographics. I don't know. Like we just thought
Yeah,
it was
state's
something
using it for something. You just
that
don't
was
know
neat.
what.
I mean, we don't. I mean, or I don't know. Maybe they've had it in there so that if they provide documentation like a DD 214, make sure it matches what they said or something. I don't know. That is a good question.
My guess is that it's probably something that maybe a legislator would want to know, like what branch are you getting the
Right.
most people from? But I mean,
Yeah.
if it's not a required element, and unless it's something that specifically they want, then I would figure they would make it a required element. I mean, we always put it in like everyone else is saying because it's there, and 99% of the time we have a DD 214 that'll have it on there. So it's not difficult to provide it, but as far as why, yeah, I can't think of anything we would use it for. Like I said, unless a legislator wanted to know, but then they would probably say, hey, this needs to be a required Pearl element.
Yeah, to me, being in the performance here, I always say I love information, not just because it's required. I don't know that I can specifically identify what I would use this from, but maybe it is something that someone could say, it seems odd that nobody from the Air Force has ever come into our program. Do they always have jobs waiting for them when they, leave service, their active service? It could be an outreach thing of saying, hey, is there a population we're not getting the word out that we exist? Would be my
Right.
reason for a lot of this additional information ask is that you would then compare it to demographic information and say, is there somebody we're missing? Is it something we're not getting the message out? Is it something we're not advertising or something? That would be my only thought of why that would be useful, is to just see if there's something. And maybe the other military branches have that as one of their outgoing messages. Say, hey, you're 40 years old and retiring from the military. Do you still want to work? Here's somebody that might be able to help you acclimate back to public employment. And one branch doesn't do that for some reason. You know what I'm saying? That would be the only reason I can see why you would need this, is just to see if there's any kind of trend that would dictate something. But
Yeah,
That
other
makes
than that,
sense.
like if there's local, county, township, municipal, like local, veterans assistance offices that I don't know. Yeah, I guess if like, yeah, you wanted to refer the person for additional help other than what we're providing them, but I think it's all the same, a veteran. I don't think it matters by branch. So yeah, that's a head scratcher.
Yeah, we have a VSO office here at our office, and they've never asked us, hey, can you tell us what branch of the service they were in? We do general referrals, but yeah, that's never been something they've asked.
So kind of what I'm gathering here is if this was removed, it's not going to cause you any headaches. Because they would still be able to answer, yes, they're a veteran, and they would still have to provide that documentation. You just wouldn't know which branch of service they were in.
Yeah, I think that's good. If they want to add it in later, they can, but like I said, I just on my end, we've never had any demand for that data.
And on that DD 214, does it tell you what branch they served in?
Yes.
Yeah.
So I mean, if you're getting the DD 214, you're already getting the documentation of what branch they're in without answering this question.
Yeah. But the data is already there.
Mm-hmm.
If they change their mind later on and say they want to add it in, okay, we can. But I don't see a need for it at this point.
Perfect. And I'm not sure, Lynette, I know you're on, but I don't know how much of that you caught. But it sounds like our general consensus is we really don't need this question. And Mark Burgess said that the only reason why he could see that we would use it would be for like outreach reasons or for like collecting demographic information. But it sounds like most of the LOIAs don't really need this, and they're just entering it now because it's required on the app. Is there anything you can think of that you might want to add?
No, and that what y'all are saying and confirming what when we asked in other meetings. So appreciate that.
Perfect. Then we will get that information over to Olivia because she's the one doing our main discovery on the application. And that's all I had today. And I believe I was the only one on the docket, so we might be able to give you some time back. So anything from anyone else before we close out? All right, thank you all. We're not meeting next week because the BAs will be in Bloomington hanging out with the state folks. So we'll see you again on February the 27th.
Thanks.
Thanks all.
Bye.
Thanks.